So Call of Duty Black Ops 6 has just recently released, and I don't know about you guys, but there is only one game mode that ever takes my interest on these games, and that is the zombies. Now, I've been a huge fan of these games since World at War and up until about Black Ops 3, but then, I'll be honest, Black Ops 4 came out and made me want to commit arson. That game put me off so much that I did actually completely skip Cold War, so this is the first zombie experience I've had in what feels like forever. And from what I've played so far, I think it's fair to say there is definitely some really good elements and some kinda mid to sort of pretty shitty elements in this game. So when it comes to the positives, and this sort of goes the same with every Call of Duty, the sound and audio design is absolutely top drawer, both in terms of the actual zombies and the guns themselves. There's a real sort of immersive feel that you get from just playing this game. Not to mention the soundtrack itself is very good. It's a nice little sort of callback to the OG zombies, but it does have its own little twist and sort of makes Black Ops 6 unique. It's not just a complete rip-off of what's come before it. Now, where this game has absolutely blown me away is in the progression that you can achieve in the zombies mode itself. Now, again, I've looked it up. I can see it's similar to what was there in Cold War, but I didn't play that. So to me, this is all brand new and fresh, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. So this has largely come in the form of augments, which essentially enable you to upgrade your perks, your weapon field upgrades, and your sort of second pack-a-punch ability, so like the dead wires and sort of that sort of elemental aspect of the guns. Now, to me, what makes this so good is that it gives you a reason to continue to grind out zombies. I always felt like a big issue was once you'd done the Easter egg, unless if you wanted to go for high rounds, there was never really that much you could do. Again, unless you wanted to, say, hit like the max rank in Black Ops 3 or something like that. But it didn't actually really give you much in terms of the rewards. It was just the odd calling card or an emblem or something. Whereas this system actually gives you stuff in-game. And I'm not just speaking about cosmetics, because obviously you've had the camo grinds that you've been able to do in the likes of Black Ops 3 and in this game, and they are cool, they're a fun little side thing, but what we're actually discussing here is things that will fundamentally change and honestly improve the experience you have in the game yourself. Some of these also seem really powerful as well. I know there's one in the little quick revive tree, which is essentially once you revive your teammates, they will keep all of their perks. That's almost like a Phoenix Up level of overpowered from the Black Ops 3 Gobblegums system. And the fact you have that permanently is really cool, because you've been rewarded for grinding the game to that point to unlock it. I personally don't subscribe to the fact that you can have stuff that's overpowered in zombies. It's a PvE game mode, you should just be able to have whatever overpowered shit you want. And I'm really hoping that Call of Duty also see it this way and don't look to nerf any of these, because they're just fun. My only potential real gripe with these is the fact that once a meta is found out, it is going to make a lot of them obsolete. Now that harkens back sort of Vietnam flashbacks for me to Black Ops 4, where you obviously had the perk system which was different, and once you found out what the best perks were, there was no need to ever use any of the other ones. I don't think it's going to be quite like that, but there will be a lot of these little augments that are just never going to see the light of day because they're not as useful as the others. Another element which has been pulled from Cold War is the use of a salvage system within zombies. Now again, I've never really experienced this, but essentially it can be used to sort of craft armor, because yep, there's armor plates now, just like Warzone, and other sort of score streaks and sort of equipment and things like that. I don't necessarily think it's a bad addition. However, I don't like it as much as I did Vanilla Zombies. It feels like it's becoming a little bit too much. Also, from an actual gameplay standpoint itself, it's unimaginably expensive in-game. I think it's like 14,000 points for the 3 armor plates. Like, that is criminal. Especially in a game where it's definitely harder to pick up points than it has been in the previous games. Since you now only get points every kill, or essence, whatever they want to call it, it does mean that like the point guns back in the day, like those little shitty SMGs that you used to use to just fill zombies full of bullets, don't really have any use now. It's very much a matter of whatever outputs the most damage. And again, this brings me back to another concern, which is that there is now going to be a meta in this game. Don't get me wrong, there's always been some weapons that are better than others, and obviously you've got wonder weapons, which are the best things you can get. But since this game also has loadouts, you have the ability to edit and kit out fully a gun that you want to take with you. And since it's all reliant on damage, realistically, people are just going to pick a shotgun and get it to the max level, because you can do that either in zombies or in multiplayer now, since the systems carry over. And once you have that gun fully set out, realistically, all you're going to do is upgrade that gun, because you can do that with like the scrap rarities and things. So that kind of makes a lot of war weapons and like the box, for example, a bit redundant. Obviously at this point we're still very early days in the game cycle, but I fear in say a month or so, when people work out what the meta is both in the augments and in the loadouts, that this game is just going to have a massive fall off in players, which genuinely I don't really want to happen because I have enjoyed this game quite a lot so far. However, one of the things which I really feel needs a bit of work in this game is the amount of health that the zombies have. Now, I fully appreciate that you can triple pack-a-punch your gun and give it all the gold upgrades and add the elemental stuff to it, but not only is this mega fucking expensive, by the time you can afford it, the zombies are going to be absolutely hench. There is a fuck ton of health on these things, and it's not just the basic bitch zombies that I'm talking about here. There is an obsession with special zombies in this game. The amount of manglers I've seen on screen is insane. There's such a spam of the boss zombies, and like the amalgams as well, who are actually really fucking difficult to kill. There's just quite a lot going on, and for say newer players that can be quite overbearing. It feels as if the way that challenge is being added to this mode isn't necessarily the same as it used to be. So as I've mentioned, things are crazy expensive now. You're talking about 50,000 in terms of fully pack-a-punching a gun, and then you've also got all the salvage shit to make it gold. Like if you want that on 2 weapons, it's absurd. Whereas back in sort of say the Black Ops 3 era of zombies, there were still challenging things to do, but rather than this sort of point grinding method, it was more of an exciting, challenging way. So, for example, you had like the varying trials or sort of different pack-a-punch steps that you'd do in order to unlock this stuff. And there is still definitely elements of that in Black Ops 6. There's plenty of side Easter eggs and things that will give you good rewards, but just the simple things like unlocking the pack-a-punch, taking ritual steps in Shadows of Evil, for example, or crafting the specialist weapons like the Gauntlet in Gorod Krovi. These were things that were challenging, but they rewarded you well and gave you good stuff for them, whereas this game is very much of a, oh, grind out as many points as you can, and you can just buy the best stuff in the game, which to me is just a bit disappointing, and again I fear that people will grow old of that quite quickly. Speaking of things that are somewhat overbearing, I can't stand that Zombies now has one of the most noisy HUDs I think I've ever seen. When you're talking about like the numbers, the kills on screen, the amount of XP you're getting, that's all shit that you don't need. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the fact that Treyarch implemented the different HUDs and you can select it and you can change that if you want to, but to me, this game has been designed to use that specific HUD. You kind of need to know how much health, say, the boss has, for example, or like the sub-bosses have. So I don't like it. I don't feel like it's been optimized as much as it could be, but that's just a personal gripe. It just feels a little bit unnecessary with the bosses specifically, because beforehand you could always see visible damage, and you still can on the manglers in Black Ops 6, but when you look at like the Panzer or the Magua, you knew how damaged they were because you could see like their heads had been popped or some armor had fallen off. So it feels really unnecessary to me. Speaking of unnecessary things in this game mode, I really don't like that we now have markers telling us where to go at the start of the game, so just like directing you to the pack-a-punch or how to unlock the power. That was half the fun of Zombies to begin with, was learning the map and the objectives attached to it. So getting power, for example, learning where perks are, knowing the Easter egg itself and not being handheld to do it. Now at the minute we're fine, but I do believe in a couple of weeks or so there's going to be a guided version. That is a fucking awful idea. I remember that being the case in World War II Zombies and people absolutely detested it. Again, it's probably not going to be to the same extent as that, but the general concept of telling you how to do the Easter egg ruins the whole concept of it being an Easter egg to me. It's just a mainline objective now. I get that since there's clearly more of a splice with multiplayer, you're going to get things like a mini-map. So you're going to learn unintentionally, say, where a perk is, or where a box spawns, where the ammo crates are. But again, to me it just takes away a little bit from the actual soul of what made Zombies so good. Another element that we haven't actually touched on yet is the Gobblegums that have returned into Black Ops 6. Now, from my first sort of impressions, these seem way less overpowered than they were back in Black Ops 3. However, they're certainly more challenging to get as well. So back in the day, you'd obviously grind through, earn divinium, all nice and easy, whack it in, and you'd get 3 Gobblegums spit out at the end, right? Whereas now, you just sort of randomly get gumballs every sort of, 8 to 10 rounds, and the barrier to get these seems way more difficult than it was before. Like, I feel like back in the day, you'd get divinium for just, like, buying doors or, like, spinning the box or whatever, but on this, you just have to sort of grind through rounds, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but they feel more difficult to obtain. I'm kind of hoping that these will become obtainable in the daily challenges, which are sort of in the main menu, because having 3 of those a day is obviously great, and it is better than Black Ops 3, but they used to provide you more than just XP like they do in Black Ops 6. They used to give you liquid divinium. So I don't see any reason why Black Ops 6 can't implement this to sort of produce gumballs in the future, since there's no sort of liquid divinium currency as such. I know there was a bit of fear surrounding Gobblegums coming back into Black Ops 6, but so far from my experience, it feels as if they have been handled well. Don't get me wrong, I loved using them back in Black Ops 3 and just being overpowered as shit, and I think they did give the game so much replay value, but it seems as if it's easier to become an absolute tank on this game anyway. Obviously, with the new perk system, you can buy all the perks, so perkaholics aren't necessarily redundant, but they're not as meaningful as they were back in the day, for example. I will admit I'm a little bit upset that there's no sort of classic gumballs that you can just have to use. Everything seems to have a rarity and, more importantly, a maximum amount of uses, which sucks, so you could quite easily run out of something that really isn't that useful of a gobblegum. But honestly, if they're not that useful anyway, I guess it isn't really that essential. It would have just been another part of the game that you could have grinded and unlocked more with, kind of how you did in Black Ops 3. Now, I don't know if it's just me or if it's the fact that there is obviously a new release, but this game has got some bugs in it. And no, I don't mean the parasites. I seem to find a glitch with the loadouts where I literally could not enter the gunsmith. I just kept on cycling back through to the main menu and it just wouldn't let me proceed any longer. And there was a point where my game literally green screened and just crashed the whole thing. Again, I'm willing to sort of write these off, but I don't know if this has happened to anybody else at all. Either way, it's a AAA title. I'd like to think that a game can come without bugs, but there you go. In terms of some of the more finer details, I really liked loose change being back underneath the perks. I thought that was quite a nice touch. And I do like the little mini zombies in-game cutscenes that you get. So like when you enter on Terminus and you can shoot, say for example, the zombies that are crawling around, or the ones that are like eating the guards, or sometimes even battle the guards themselves. I just think that's quite cool. That's a good level of immersion to the whole experience. I don't really know how I feel about the death scenes yet. Like, they're cool, but part of me really does miss hearing like the Easter egg song at the end of games that you'd often have play. And I must just be an old man when it comes to zombies at this point, but I thought that going back to the gun that you bought off the wall and rebuying it would let you buy ammo, not buy an entire new fucking gun. That, to me, is stupid. I know you've got the ammo boxes dotted around the map, and it's obviously just a me problem being an idiot, but it's just a unnecessary change to me. I will say I do like the mangler gameplay that they introduced as well, obviously one of the sort of special abilities you can do, but it doesn't really feel like Call of Duty to me. It feels more like what you'd see in something like a Dead Rising or something. So again, it's cool, it's just something new, I suppose. Nitpicks and quirks aside, one of the major things that we have to discuss on this video is the fact that Black Ops 6 has launched with 2 zombies maps, which I don't believe was the case in Cold War, and it is genuinely lovely to have again. Starting off with Liberty Falls, for example, I see this as like the intro map for players, so whether you're new or new to the systems like myself, this is very much a here's how you learn how zombies works, basically. It's very simple, very small, not really a lot to do. It has got its own mainline Easter egg and side Easter eggs and stuff like that, but to me it's almost like an evolved version of Town from Black Ops 2, where it had all the basic core fundamental elements in there, but it wasn't ridiculously over the top what you had to do to just enjoy it and have fun in the actual mode. If you think back to Black Ops 3, for example, where you had Shadows of Evil and the Giant, so the Giant was very much this map for players to get used to the environment of Black Ops 3. And this balance offered the player base to actually decide whether they wanted to have a casual, easy experience, or a more out there and more sort of story narrative driven experience with the likes of Terminus in this game. I've got to say, the opening cutscene to this map as well is absolutely awesome. Again, OG players like myself, you see Richtofen run around with a Wunderwaffe, you absolutely love it, you eat that shit up all day. And the jet gun actually getting some good service feels absolutely class. Again, it hits you with the transit member berries, so all the OG players are loving that, but it takes away the nightmares of having to rebuild it constantly, and this thing is actually fucking insane. It's so good. It's everything that it should have been back in Black Ops 2. As I mentioned, there are obviously some smaller Easter eggs in here, like the little Mr. Peaks bowling one, which is very, very simple, but it's just a fun way to introduce Easter eggs and provide players with good rewards. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. Liberty Falls was clearly just meant to be like the quote-unquote outbreak map. There wasn't a lot of effort that went into making this. That is apparent. But I like it. I think it's serviceable enough to do the fundamentals of what you want zombies to do, which at the end of the day is just to survive and kill zombies. Maybe I'm a little bit basic in liking that, but I don't need a quest with about 15 different steps in it to enjoy zombies. Fundamentally, the mode in its essence is to just survive as long as you can, right? And that is what this map allows. Now, when it comes to Terminus, I think it's fair to say that this is where Treyarch clearly put more of their attention. There is way more going on in this map, just in terms of like the Easter eggs, the main sort of traversing of the map. Obviously, you can get in the boat and drive to all the various different little islands. There's side Easter eggs out the wazoo. You've got an awesome wonder weapon, which is actually unique for a change. We haven't quite, at least in memory, had a wonder weapon that has the multiple effects in the same way that this one does. Only thing that really springs to mind is the Mark III and Gorod Crovey. But again, I love the fact that with this, once you've unlocked it, you can just pack a punch the wonder weapon. There isn't like a ridiculously over-the-top quest in order to upgrade it. It's just refreshing, it's different, and there's no right or wrong way to do it in my eyes. It's just nice for variation. And it's just an incredibly solid intro into Black Ops 6. Now, I haven't been able to complete it yet because I'm a fucking noob and I suck at video games, but the mainline Easter egg does look very good and very rewarding. Again, you've got that boss fight at the climax, which looks fantastic. To me, it feels as if it has all the core elements of the things that I adore about zombies within it. It's just presented slightly differently through this map. Now, I'll be honest, I am completely out of the storyline since Black Ops 4 literally took a big shit all over it in my eyes, but this game is clearly trying to have a narrative, which I do appreciate, and I feel if players can buy into it, myself included, this will become way more prevalent, and the community can start backing it as they did with sort of the Ether storyline back in the Black Ops 3 days. My only actual fear with this, and major spoilers ahead, so if you want to click off or skip past it, feel free, but this storyline seems to be linked to the Chaos storyline from Black Ops 4. Now, I've already said multiple times how much I fucking despise that game, but just from an actual, just moral standpoint, the creator of this, Jason Blundell, who was the COD Zombies lead at the time, said that Chaos was its own and would never be linked into the mainline sort of Ether story. So, to me, this just sort of betrays everything that world was meant to be. And also, I'm not being funny, but Chaos itself was canned because everybody fucking hated it, so I don't really understand the thinking here. It's like member berries, but negative member berries, I guess. I don't know, I'm interested to see where it goes, and I'm not gonna hate on the map because of that direction they've gone with it, but I just am a little bit cautious moving forward with the storyline aspect. Overall though, to me, Terminus has way more of a zombies-like atmosphere than, say, Liberty Falls. It's incredibly immersive with like the traps and just the general map itself. I like the power activation steps, even though they are literally spoon-fed to you. None of it's revolutionary by any stretch, but it just feels like more of a fleshed out map and what you'd be used to seeing in zombies. So when it comes to actually trying to rank and review Black Ops 6 Zombies, I feel like this is something that can just change throughout its game cycle. But based on what we have so far, I do feel like this is a very solid edition of Zombies. I went into this thinking, does it feel like a 4-year game? Because that is how long they've had to develop this. And to me, not quite. Liberty Falls, definitely not, just in terms of the actual map itself, but Terminus more so. And from a gameplay perspective, there is no doubt that this is a very, very good game. I absolutely adore the augments and the progression that they've got going on. I think that's such a good way of just maintaining the player base and just offering something for players to grind for. Again, having 2 maps off the bat is awesome itself, and it allows the player base to split into almost a casual and, I want to say ranked, but it's not, a more hardcore experience with the mode itself. My only fears do lie in the longevity. I fear that once there is a meta achieved in these augments and in the loadouts, you're going to get very bored very quickly and this gameplay will become stale. As a somewhat newcomer coming into it, I do feel like some of the elements are overcomplicated and a little bit unnecessary. However, in terms of the basics of the mode, it is enjoyable if you like COD Zombies. If you like COD Zombies, you'll like this game, in my opinion. And I will say, once I did get to grips with the more newer aspects, I did thoroughly enjoy the game, particularly in co-op. I feel like that's something that's criminally underrated in Zombies, especially now that virtually every single Easter egg is completable solo, but the moments you have in co-op are honestly top tier. If I was to give this a ranking out of 10, I'd probably give it around a 7.5 at the minute. That is very much subject to change depending on how the rest of the game goes with the DLC cycle. Because I'll be honest, I didn't mind Black Ops 4 initially, and then we got served up the shit we got. But anyway, what do you guys think of Black Ops 6 Zombies? Have you played it yet? Do you think you will be playing it? Have you got a favourite map out of Liberty Falls and Terminus? Let me know all your thoughts down below, and if you are new here and you have enjoyed, please do consider subscribing. It really does help out the channel. Anyway, that's all from me today, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in another one sometime soon.